Hello and welcome to lesson 2 of week 3. In this lesson, we are going to look at the Flex Layout module. My name is Mildred. Now, Bootstrap 5 provides Flexbox layout module, and we use this to design flexible, responsive layout. Now, there are core display classes for the Flex layout. Let's look at these display classes. We have something we call dflex. I'm going to delete this. I'll just write it here. You can put the value of your class attributes to be dflex like this, and dflex makes an element a flexible container. Then we have the inline flex written like this, and this will make the inline flexible container. Now remember that we have in CSS elements that have different forms. We have the inline element and the block level element. Block takes the entire width, inline just takes what is needed and continues the next element on the same line. So if we want to have an inline container, we use the inline flex like this, and then if we want to disable flex at a specific breakpoint, we can now start adding the D, SM, MD, LG, XL, XXL like we saw in the grid. Or you can have D none, you can have something like D none, and you can also have so if you want to put the breakpoint, you put MD and you put flex like this. So you're putting a breakpoint, and the breakpoints for these values are same with what we saw in the last lesson. Now there are directions for the flex. Now the value of the class when it is flex row, this is the default direction. So if you put flex row reverse, you change the direction. If you put flex column, you change the direction, and then flex column reverse. Now if you took our front-end development with HTML5, CSS3 and JavaScript, we did all of this CSS without using a framework, which will help you to really understand what Bootstrap is doing. Right, and you can now put a column flex MD column like this, so it will change at different breakpoints. So you can use MD, you can use X. I always like using the grid, but we don't have any one better than the other. It just depends on your preference. Now we have the different classes we use to wrap, and we can have flex no wrap like this, and then we can have flex wrap that will allow wrap, and then we have flex wrap reverse that will reverse wrap, and then we have the justify content, which is the main axis where you can write justify content stats. So all of these are what we have done in CSS before, and for those who took the CSS course with HTML5, CSS3 and JavaScript in one course. The new one will start sometime in this year, where we are going to update the technology to have the same front-end development with HTML5, CSS3 and JavaScript without using frameworks. And then when you understand CSS and you can write your own framework, you will understand what Bootstrap is doing. So we have the different justify content values. If you refer to your lesson resource, the values are there. And then we have the align item, which like cross axis, where we can align item start, align item center. And when we go back to our raw CSS, you will understand what all of these alignment classes means, and Bootstrap just using what CSS already has to create a framework. So we can have different classes also for the flex sizing and how we order them, and this will be like the flex row 0. So I'm going to link you to videos of the raw CSS for you to understand what all of these classes actually do in CSS before Bootstrap use them in their framework. So this will control the growth 0, 1, and then you can do flex shrink also, you can do flex fill. And let's just try to do something that will make you understand this, and we're going to create a horizontal layout with centered content, something like that. So we have this class container fluid. Let's make this class container, and then let's do another container div. I'll close div. Now this I want to put the class to be equal to, so you can just use one class attribute and name all the values for different things. I want to make this a flexible container. I'll first use dflex. I want to justify the content between. I'll put justify content between. I want to align the items to the center. I'll say align items center. I want to put a padding. I'll put padding 3, and then I want the background to be, let's say, light, VG light. Now I want to have another container here, and then I will close the, let's say this one is the left of the page. Now this will have another container, and for this I want to make this a flexible container within the container, so you can have embedded layer, and even like we did in the last lesson, you can actually have embedded row within a row for the grid also. Now let's say we want to align item center here, and I want to have a button within this. So we'll look at this also next week. We'll look at the different button classes along with the different background and text color classes that we have in Bootstrap. So we'll have class is btn, let's say small, btn primary, summary and margin end too, like this. Let's say this is like the action part of the page or something like that, and let's put action between the button here. Let's put this as a text that will appear on the button, and then I'll do the span tag is a container for text, so I'll say span, and here I'll write the heading, or not just a heading, I'll just put profile, something like that. Let's just see what the web page looks like now, and then we see I've created this, like this is the left part of the page. We have profile action. We're doing something like we're creating a navigation bar with this flex. So you can see that with the grid it makes it easy, but you see how we use flex to create this kind of navigation without actually using the nav. So we just have like a horizontal layout, and we have a centered container. Here you can see the lights, how it has a little bit of shadow. Then we can combine flex and grid, and we can have like an example where we combine the grid and the flex in one. You can refer to your lesson resource to see how that is done. You can also refer to your lesson resource to look at all of the different tips for you to do this more professionally. We have different common pitfalls that you can encounter, and forgetting to include a container will cause like butters and alignments to appear and misalign, and you always use a container or container fluid every time you design, like we do like this. And then making container or container fluid incorrectly inside the same nav bar is going to be can be a pitfall. So you want to always be intentional when you design. So you don't want to accidentally have a design, but you want to be intentional. You want to use utility classes like all this paragraph 3 or all of this for small tweaks to avoid extra CSS, and then you want to use row call to create responsive card grid. Like let's say we have something like that is equal to, you can have row calls 1, something like that. Now this is one that when you combine flex and grid together, but you will see that in your lesson resource that will help you. So you want to always check mobile first behavior by resizing the browser. Bootstrap is usually always mobile first, right? So at a glance, the first thing you want to do when you use these classes is you want to see the layout, which is container fluid. You want to see the row, you want to see the calls, the different breakpoints, and the total column to be equal to 12. You want to look at for the flex, you want to make sure you see a deflex, because if this is not there, this is not a flexible container. You want to also look at your spacing, your margin. For instance, when you have your P3 and when we have a margin end too, you want to look at all of that thing, and you want to also look at the different visibilities that you have. Alright, so this is where we end this lesson. Next week we're going to go deeper to look at the different classes that we use for background text colors, and also we're going to look at the different buttons and alerts that we have in Bootstrap. Thank you, and see you next week.